von der Leyen, le système de la Chine est différent et au-delà des règles.
Indeed, we discussed today EU-China relations ahead of the EU-China summit, where I will be with the Council President Antonio Costa. And therefore, let me complement what you said so that we have the whole view of the European Union's position. Indeed, this year marks half a century of diplomatic relations between our Union and China. And this has coincided with possibly the most remarkable chapter in China's long history. In just 50 years, its GDP has grown by more than 10 times. Villages were replaced by megacities. More than 800 million people lifted themselves out of poverty. Once a society of agriculture, China has become an industrial giant and a clean tech leader. Once an underdeveloped country, it has turned into the largest lender to developing nations. China has always been one of the great global civilizations, but in the last 50 years, it has also become one of the great global powers. Honourable Member, this makes our relationship with China one of the most defining and consequential for the rest of this century. But our relations with China must be rooted in a clear-eyed assessment of the new reality. I've always said it, Europe is fully committed to result-oriented engagement with China. And this Commission is leading the way when it comes to de-risking, not decoupling. We, EU and China, are two of the three largest economies and trade powers in the world. But we only trade some 2 billion euros worth every day. This is only twice the volume we are trading with Switzerland. Because while the Chinese market is enormous, our access to the market remains limited. The point here is that while we are leading voices on global challenges, there are very real risks at play for Europe. These risks are both strategic and systemic in nature. They affect our security and our competitiveness. These risks emerge from the fact that China has an entirely different system and it has unique instruments at its disposal to play outside the rules. This, for instance, allows China to flood global markets with subsidized overcapacity, not just to boost its own industries, but to choke international competition. China has also become a formidable actor in the global information and cyberspace. We very much welcome the voices of all Chinese on global issues of shared concern, but we will be very vigilant against any form of influence operations and cyber attacks in Europe. This is plain and simply unacceptable. Honourable Members, these realities do present a real challenge for Europe to confront. And we have started to address these challenges. Whether de-risking our economy and industry, using our new toolbox for trade defence measures, or diversifying our supply chains in sectors where China holds dependencies, if not outright monopolies. At the same time, I believe there's also an opportunity here to build a more meaningful partnership with China. But to move our relationship forward, we need to make real progress and find fair solutions on the issues where we have been deadlocked for far too long: predictability and reliability. This is how we can work in our mutual interest. And this is the message I will bring to the EU-China summit later this month. There are three priorities on which we need to focus on. First, rebalancing our economic relationship with China. Second, de-risking. And third, advancing diplomacy on global issues, including climate. On my first point, China is running the largest trade surplus in the history of mankind. Its trade surplus with our union has surpassed 300 billion euros last year. And this is, while it is getting harder and harder for European companies to do business in China. Our products are systematically discriminated in public procurement because of Beijing's Buy China policy. Goods and services that are made in China get an automatic 20% price advantage in public bids. This is simply not fair. The system is explicitly rigged. So we have taken action to rebalance the public procurement market for medical devices, for example, because it is a matter of basic reciprocity. Europe remains fundamentally open, but most of our companies are rapidly losing market share in China. We want to see tangible progress on our long-standing requests for market access. The same is true on state-subsidized overcapacity. China cannot rely on exports to solve its domestic economic challenges. Overcapacity must be addressed at its source. It cannot simply be offloaded onto global markets. That is the clear message behind our investigation into electric vehicles. Interestingly, we see that a serious debate within China on excessive production, disorderly price undercutting, and distorted markets has started. They understand that the domestic challenge cannot be solved at the expense of others. And let me be clear, if our partnership is to move forward, we need a genuine rebalancing, fewer market distortions, less overcapacity exported from China, and fair reciprocal access for European business in China. Honourable members, the second priority is to speed up with de-risking. China invested early in many of the technologies of the future, but then it started flooding global markets with cheap subsidized goods to wipe out competitors. Entire Western industries closed, from solar panels to mineral processing, leaving China to dominate. I have always spoken about China's domination of the rare earth permanent magnets market and how that can be used for economic leverage. And this is why we are developing alternative supply sources in close cooperation with our partners. Of course, dialogue with China is also essential. We're engaging with Beijing so that it loosens its export restrictions. Because, as I said at the outset, we do not believe in strategic decoupling, and this is not in our interest. I believe that for Europe it would be inefficient and ineffective. But we will continue to de-risk, because we have learned the lesson about the extent to which dependencies are vulnerabilities and how tech, trade and security are inherently linked. De-risking is simply a matter of European independence. Honourable members, my next point is on geopolitics. Security is more interlinked between the Euro-Atlantic and the Indo-Pacific than it has been in several generations. And it is evolving rapidly. So it is in our interest to work together. But we also know that China's unyielding support for Russia is creating heightened instability and insecurity for Europe. We can say that China is de facto enabling Russia's war economy, and we cannot accept this. And I've always said how China continues to interact with Putin's war will be a determining factor for EU-China relations going forward. If China claims to defend the international rules-based order, then it should unequivocally condemn Russia's gross violation of Ukraine's sovereignty territorial integrity and internationally recognized borders, and act accordingly. And if China claims to defend multilateralism, then it must respect the rules and principles of international trade anchored in the WTO. Honourable members, my final point is about our cooperation to address climate change. While China is the largest emitter in the world with 30% of global emissions, clean energy also accounted for over 1/4 of China's GDP growth. China invested over $900 billion in clean technologies alone, more than the US, Europe, Japan, and India combined. Beijing is at once a staunch competitor in the clean tech race, and on the other hand, a vital partner for global decarbonization. This is the complexity we must deal with. We must switch gear in our competition, but also explore every avenue for cooperation. We are both convinced that the triple planetary crisis of climate, biodiversity loss, and pollution requires a strong multilateral framework. And we want COP30 in Belém to deliver ambitious results. We both see net zero targets and policies as a growth strategy and a real driver for industrial modernization. And we both see the opportunities to work closer together in sectors such as emission trading, carbon capture and storage, and the circular economy. Honourable member, the point is that there's a lot we can do together if China is ready to work together in a spirit of predictability and reliability. Just like Europe, China is a continent-sized power. Just like our union, it is a complex and fascinating giant. Our relationship must reflect this complexity. We will always defend our interests. We will de-risk our economies, but we do not want to decouple. And as we enter our second half century of cooperation, we know that China is changing. But this is also a new era for Europe, an independent Europe. So we are ready to build a more balanced and a more stable relationship and write a new chapter in this defining relationship. Long live Europe. Thank you.
Grazie Presidente.